that Ms. Jennings and I switch spots in the speaking order?
I don't have any problem with that. Ms.
Thank you.
Jennings?
Thank you for the change. We both work in secure sites, and I sent mine in first, then he sent his in, but his site is more efficient. Good morning. My name is Nancy Jennings, and I live at 2115 Marlborough Drive. I'm president of Seminary Hill Association, Inc., and speak today on its behalf. Citizens' time and energy are being diverted and wasted by controversial issues unrelated to improving the quality of education in Alexandria. I spoke to you last month about one debacle and wish to update you on it and call to your attention another. I'm sure you're aware of the discord related to the real estate developments at the expanded Patrick Henry School and Rec Center. The ACPS and school board chose option A1 over the advisory committee's recommended option C1, claiming it was cheaper. Within 2 weeks, the ACPS discovered that A1 did not take into account the cost of a third floor, nor the cost of moving Dominion Virginia's power lines. Option C1 does not have either of those additional expenses and has less square footage. Continuing on with A1 as the ACPS is doing is a further waste of taxpayer money. The newest debacle relates to a resolution from the ACPS which we oppose. It came out on October 6th and claims there are reasons to change the nature and composition of the T.C. Williams Community Advisory Committee. You have a handout of that resolution with edits in red made by the ACPS earlier this week. You also have a long letter from TC neighbors about the problems with the original resolution. The school board held a public meeting last Thursday and is supposed to vote on the resolution in less than 2 weeks. Let me call to your attention a couple of things and the problems in the resolution. It calls for a permanent forum when one already exists. TC Advisory Committee has met since 2007, and members have copies of the minutes of these meetings that the ACPS has not made available to the school board or the superintendent. The resolution adds members from groups who do not live adjacent to the school, one of which may not exist at all. In addition, Carl Moritz, the city's planning director, sent an email on January 11th to ACPS Chief Operations Clarence Stokes and expressed doubts about his plans, saying they were inconsistent with the standard city practice and did not meet the intent of Condition 69 of the DSUP to provide permanent forum for the discussion and resolution of neighborhood issues. Finally, at a meeting on September 27th, the Seminary Hill Board, Jack Sullivan, asked school board member Bill Campbell whether it was true that the school lawyer had suggested that trying to alter the purpose and makeup of the advisory committee was an easier road to achieve the ACPS objectives than trying to formally rescind the provision 69. Mr. Campbell enthusiastically admitted that was true. It's time to get them under control. I'll let Frank continue.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Jennings. Mr. Puttso.
Good morning. I'm Frank Puttso, 1423 Juliana Place, Alexandria. I've been civically engaged for about 20 years, including community relations with ACPS and the school board. For the reasons I'll explain in my short time, the time has come for an independent audit and inspection by a third party of 1, ACPS management of finances, and 2, compliance with special use permit requirements. We would also respectfully request that this body strictly control appropriations to ACPS until the independent audit is complete. These actions are needed to restore public and council confidence in stewardship of its funds and facilities. To follow up on Ms. Jennings, just quickly, the entire rationale for Patrick Henry that it was $1.2 million cost differential between options A1 and C1. It was always vague where that number came from. It was never adequately explained. No full cost comparison was ever done. As Nan pointed out, within 2 months, the plans are overhauled, and any $1.2 million cost differential, if it ever existed in the first place, is now evaporated. There are also significant problems with SUP requirement compliance. Merely the latest one is the T.C. Williams requirement number 69. There are plenty of other SUP requirements we believe require oversight by this body, landscaping being among them, but many others. This failure to budget and expend properly and lack of transparency has been a hallmark of management for years. ACPS said the tennis courts renovation would cost about $475,000. It ended up being $1.6 million. Hammond's Field was $1.2 million in the budget this body approved. It cost well over $2 million. The lights at Parker Gray was represented to cost about $750,000. We already know it's going to be closer to $4 million. We also know that they've allocated hundreds of thousands on a battalion of lawyers to get ready to fight citizens and perhaps this body too. We have no idea where all these millions of dollars come from. They just simply appear. I've been on the board one member who expressed great concern about last year about the management and stewardship of funds and used the word unconscionable during a board member meeting. This has been going on now for so long that it is apparent to us there's little interest in engagement with citizens. We tried. We really, really tried. Patrick Henry, T.C. Williams, we engaged reasonably, fairly, and constructively. We need your help. It is taxpayer money that council appropriates. Council and the public have every right to know how it is being managed. An independent third-party audit and inspection of school management of public dollars in the last 5 years is needed, including whether they are spending funds consistent with the budget representations before this body. The audit should also include an inspection of how it is complying with SUP requirements. Contrary to their belief, even the schools are accountable. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you both for speaking. I know that Councilwoman Pepper has attended most, if not all, of the meetings regarding Patrick Henry and has done an outstanding job briefing us and keeping us informed. And we have discussed this on this dais in recent weeks regarding the change from C1 to A1, because it seemed, and I was tracking it very closely, though I could never attend a meeting because I had other meetings for the city at those same times, but it seemed like we were going to C1 and the advisory group, the neighborhood, what the consensus was in favor of that, and even sort of informally up here going towards C1, and then there was the mention of the cost difference, but then that, as you mentioned, has evaporated, it seems. So, but of course, we are not the school board. We can't. We do allocate funds, but there's a line of demarcation. However, I think your point is well taken with regard to how, I mean, things will come back to us in this fall with regard to Patrick Henry, and we can have that discussion. And I welcome Ms. Pepper's input here, but I'd also like to ask Mr. Jenks, I mean, you all just mentioned the idea of an audit. I don't know that that's ever been mentioned before, has it?
Well, first to clarify, the school's basically financial management and the city's financial management is audited every single year. It's a financial audit. So I just want to make that clear. So that is done. That is done by an independent outside audit firm, and those results are published. However, it is not a management audit. So the issues raised are largely ones that are outside the scope of what a financial audit entails.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jenks. Councilwoman Pepper.
Well, just to the point of the changing, I represent the council on the advisory group, and I followed it very closely and attended, I think, every single meeting. The group by majority had approved the C1, and the neighbors were willing to accept that, although it wasn't their first choice, but they made a compromise, and they were willing to accept that. And we had a majority of the people on that board, a big majority of the people on that board had recommended C1. And I can tell you, I was astonished that it was something like a week later, it was turned over, and we got A1 from the school board. It was very frustrating, at least for me, because I thought we had come to a win-win spot, a soft spot in this long and difficult discussion. So to get A1 was really really a letdown, at least for me. I thought that the neighbors and the community had really compromised on a number of things, and that ought to have been respected. Anyway, this oversight, this estimate here, was also another big surprise, although I have to say that somewhere along the way, when this argument was made that this might be a cheaper way to go, we were cautioned. I think it was by the superintendent who said that he couldn't guarantee that A would be cheaper. So I guess we were supposed to have taken that very seriously, but that thought was never developed. I think he was the person who said that. But in any event, I think we're all going to be quite surprised at what the final cost is going to be, for sure. I have to once again tell you how disappointed I was about the access that will now come off, partly off of Latham, and because the fact that here is one more school that will not have a auditorium. I'm sorry to take this opportunity, but I have to get my 2 cents worth in.